Assalamu alaykum, my brothers and sisters. Picture this. In the grand Umayyad Mosque of Damascus, among the ornate columns and beneath the soaring dome, a woman sits teaching a circle of eager students. But these aren't just any students. Among them sits the future Caliph of the Islamic Empire, a man who will rule from Spain to India. Yet here he humbly learns at her feet. This is the extraordinary story of al-Darda as-Sughra, the scholar who taught the rulers of the world. Welcome back to Sages of Islam. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button if you enjoy learning about these incredible figures. Today we're exploring the life of a 7th century woman who broke every barrier and redefined what it meant to be a teacher in the early Islamic world. The 7th century was a time of rapid expansion for the Islamic community. The generation after the Prophet's companions, known as the Tabi'un, were tasked with preserving and transmitting the precious knowledge of Islam to future generations. In Damascus, now the gleaming capital of the Umayyad Empire, scholarship flourished under the patronage of powerful caliphs who understood that knowledge was the foundation of their civilization. Our story begins with tragedy and transforms into triumph. Hujaima bint Huyai, later known as al-Darda as-Sughra, the younger mother of Darda, was born an orphan in 7th century Arabia. In a society where family connections often determined one's fate, she faced the world without parents or powerful relatives. But destiny had other plans. The great companion Abu al-Darda al-Ansari, renowned for his wisdom and piety, took her under his guardianship. This wasn't merely an act of charity, it was the beginning of one of Islam's most remarkable educational journeys. From her earliest years, young Hujaima displayed an insatiable hunger for knowledge that defied all social conventions of her time. While other girls her age learned domestic skills, she could be found in the mosque, sitting cross-legged among male scholars, absorbing every word of Quranic commentary and legal discussion. What's remarkable is that nobody stopped her. In fact, they encouraged this brilliant young mind to flourish. As a child, she prayed in the men's rows, studied the Quran alongside male students, and participated in scholarly debates with a maturity that amazed her teachers. This wasn't rebellion. This was recognition of pure intellectual talent that transcended gender boundaries in the true spirit of Islamic egalitarianism. When she reached physical maturity, she gracefully transitioned to praying with the women, but her scholarly pursuits knew no such boundaries. If anything, they intensified. Under Abu al-Darda's mentorship, she wasn't just learning. She was being groomed to become a teacher herself. The companion recognized in her something extraordinary. A mind capable of preserving and transmitting the sacred knowledge of Islam with perfect precision and deep understanding. Her education was comprehensive and rigorous. She studied directly with some of the most revered figures of early Islam, including Aisha, the beloved wife of Prophet Muhammad, known for her sharp intellect and vast knowledge of Islamic jurisprudence. She learned from Salman al-Farsi, the Persian companion whose wisdom bridged cultures and civilizations. Each encounter added layers to her understanding, building her into a formidable scholar of Hadith and Islamic law. But al-Darda wasn't content to simply absorb knowledge. She was driven to share it. Her teaching career began in Medina, the city of the Prophet, where she quickly gained recognition for her expertise in Hadith sciences and Islamic jurisprudence. Students flocked to her circles, drawn by her profound understanding and her unique teaching style that made complex legal concepts accessible to all. Her reputation grew beyond the boundaries of Medina. When she eventually moved to Damascus, she brought with her a treasure trove of authentic Islamic knowledge that the expanding Umayyad Empire desperately needed. Damascus was becoming a cosmopolitan center where Arabs, Persians, Byzantines, and others mingled, creating a complex society that required sophisticated legal and religious guidance. In Damascus, al-Darda established herself in the great Umayyad Mosque, one of the most prestigious centers of learning in the Islamic world. Here, beneath the mosque's magnificent dome, she conducted classes that attracted hundreds of students from across the empire. But what made her truly exceptional wasn't just her knowledge. It was her approach to teaching and her relationship with her students. She had a famous saying that perfectly captured her philosophy. "I have tried to worship Allah in every way, but I've never found a better way than sitting and debating with scholars." For her, teaching wasn't just a profession, It was an act of worship, a way of serving the divine through the service of human minds hungry for knowledge. Her teaching style was revolutionary. She encouraged questions, welcomed debate, and created an atmosphere where intellectual curiosity could flourish. When students asked if they were wearing her out with their constant questions, she would respond with amazement. "You weary me? I have sought worship in everything, and I did not find anything more relieving to me than sitting with scholars and exchanging knowledge with them." Among her most distinguished students was al-Malik ibn Marwan, who would later become the fifth Umayyad Caliph, ruling over an empire that stretched from the Iberian Peninsula to Central Asia. But in al-Darda's classroom, he was simply another student, eager to learn and humble enough to serve his teacher. Historical accounts paint a touching picture of their relationship. As al-Darda aged, the powerful Caliph would humbly help her to the mosque for prayers, allowing her to lean on his shoulder as they walked. After prayers, he would escort her back to her teaching circle, then sit among the other students to learn from her wisdom. This image, a ruler of the known world serving as a support for his elderly female teacher, perfectly encapsulates the respect that knowledge commanded in early Islamic civilization. The Caliph didn't just attend her classes, he sought her counsel on matters of state and religion. He would invite her to his palace as an honored guest, asking her questions about the Prophet's teachings and seeking her guidance on complex legal matters. These weren't mere courtesy calls, they were genuine consultations with a recognized authority on Islamic law and prophetic tradition. What made al-Darda's expertise so valuable was her direct connection to the earliest sources of Islamic knowledge. She had learned from those who had walked with the Prophet, who had witnessed the revelation of the Quran, who had participated in the formation of the first Muslim community. Her knowledge wasn't theoretical. It was lived experience passed down through the most reliable chains of transmission. Her expertise was officially recognized by the greatest scholars of her time. Imam Bukhari, the compiler of the most authentic collection of prophetic traditions, referred to her as an expert theologian. Ibn Abdul Barr praised her as an excellent scholar among women, and a woman intellectual, being at the same time extremely religious and pious. But perhaps the most remarkable testimony came from Iyas ibn Muawiyah, a renowned judge and scholar who declared her superior to all other Hadith scholars of the period, including celebrated masters like al-Hasan al-Basri and Ibn Sirin. This wasn't empty praise, this was professional recognition from peers who understood the depth and precision of her scholarship. Al-Darda's influence extended far beyond her immediate students. Many of those who learned from her went on to become influential scholars, judges, and teachers themselves, creating ripple effects that shaped Islamic intellectual development for generations. Her teaching methods and scholarly approaches were adopted and adapted throughout the Islamic world. But her impact wasn't limited to academic circles. Her students included people from all walks of life, merchants, craftsmen, government officials, and ordinary believers seeking to understand their faith more deeply. She made no distinctions based on social status or economic position. Knowledge, in her view, was a divine gift meant to be shared freely with all who sought it. Her character was as remarkable as her scholarship. Historical accounts describe her as deeply pious, humble, and generous. She never charged fees for her teaching, believing that knowledge of Islam should be freely available to all. When someone once gave her a small copper coin as charity, she immediately used it to buy meat to share with the poor women around her, demonstrating her constant concern for those less fortunate. Her humility was legendary. When someone warned her that malicious gossip about her had reached the Caliph, she responded with characteristic wisdom. "If we have been accused of what is not within us, then how many times have we been praised for what is also not within us?" This response reveals a person who understood the temporary nature of human judgment and remained focused on her relationship with the divine rather than worldly reputation. Al-Darda taught not just in Damascus, but also in Jerusalem, making her one of the few scholars of her era to maintain teaching circles in multiple major cities. This mobility speaks to both her reputation and the trust placed in her by different communities. Wherever she taught, she attracted devoted followings and left lasting impacts on local scholarly traditions. Her teaching career spanned several decades, during which she witnessed the transformation of the Islamic world from a primarily Arabian phenomenon to a global civilization. She helped train the religious and legal scholars who would guide this expanding community, ensuring that Islamic principles were properly understood and applied across diverse cultures and contexts. The historical record of al-Darda's life challenges many modern assumptions about women's roles in early Islamic society. Here was a woman who taught men and women equally, who was consulted by caliphs on matters of state, who traveled freely between major cities, and who was recognized as one of the foremost religious authorities of her time. Her story isn't an exception that proves the rule. It's an example of what was possible when Islamic principles were genuinely applied. Unfortunately, like many remarkable women in history, al-Darda's story has been largely overlooked in popular accounts of Islamic civilization. While male scholars from her era are well remembered and frequently quoted, her contributions have been relegated to specialist academic works and scattered historical references. This erasure is particularly tragic because her life exemplifies the educational and intellectual opportunities that Islam opened for women in its early centuries. Her legacy lives on in the thousands of students she taught, the legal opinions she rendered, and the Hadith traditions she preserved and transmitted. Every time a Muslim performs their prayers correctly, follows proper legal procedures, or understands a point of Islamic ethics, they may be benefiting from knowledge that passed through her teachings at some point in its transmission. Modern research has begun to uncover the extent of women's participation in Islamic scholarship throughout history. Scholars like Muhammad Akram Nadwi have documented thousands of female religious authorities, teachers, and legal experts spanning the centuries of Islamic civilization. al-Darda stands as one of the earliest and most prominent examples of this rich tradition of female scholarship. Her story resonates powerfully with contemporary discussions about women's education and leadership. The barriers she overcame, skepticism about women's intellectual capabilities, the challenge of gaining recognition in male-dominated fields, the need to prove herself repeatedly, are issues that women in many fields still confront today. Yet her success demonstrates that these barriers can be overcome through excellence, persistence, and supportive communities. Perhaps most importantly, al-Darda's story reminds us that the pursuit of knowledge is one of the highest forms of worship in Islam. Her famous statement about finding no better way to worship than through scholarly discussion reflects a profound understanding of the sacred nature of learning and teaching. In an age when education is often seen primarily in economic terms, her example calls us back to the spiritual dimensions of intellectual pursuit. Her life also demonstrates the importance of mentorship and educational opportunity. Abu al-Darda's decision to nurture her intellectual gifts rather than limiting her to conventional gender roles was crucial to her development. This reminds us of our responsibility to recognize and develop talent wherever we find it, regardless of social expectations or conventional limitations. The relationship between al-Darda and Caliph al-Malik offers a powerful model of how knowledge should be respected, regardless of the gender, age, or social status of its bearer. The sight of the most powerful man in the Islamic world humbly serving and learning from an elderly female scholar represents the true Islamic ideal of honoring knowledge and those who possess it. As we face contemporary challenges in education, leadership, and social justice, al-Darda's example offers both inspiration and practical guidance. She shows us that excellence transcends social barriers, that genuine scholarship serves all of humanity, and that the pursuit of sacred knowledge is among the noblest of human endeavors. Her story is ultimately one of potential realized, of barriers transcended, and of knowledge shared freely for the benefit of all. In a world that often undervalues both education and women's contributions, al-Darda stands as a beacon reminding us of what becomes possible when talent is nurtured, when knowledge is pursued for its own sake, and when communities embrace the full range of human intellectual gifts. What aspect of al-Darda's remarkable journey inspires you most? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video if you learned something new today. Subscribe to the channel for more stories of extraordinary Islamic figures who shaped our world. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and remember, knowledge is a light that illuminates every darkness.